Well, it's Friday, June 20th. We got lots to get through. It's our last show of the week. We're on here every morning at 9 a.m. or 9-ish, I guess, 9:02, 9:03. The headlines for this morning: Carney talks tough. Parliament gets set to go on vacation, a well-deserved one, I guess. And Liberals good at self-praise. And who will invest in Canada? And where's the pipeline? More investigations on the way. You can expect a lot more. And pot boiling over for the BC Health Ministry. All that and a lot more on the really big show with myself, Jim Check with Now Media, and our managing editor in our nation's capital in Ottawa there, Ian Burns.
Howdy ho. Are you ready for the storms today in Kelowna?
Yeah, apparently we're under a storm warning. Does that mean all the politicians are descending on Kelowna, or what's going on? The storm instead of it happening in Ottawa?
I have a feeling that the politicians are going to descend on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean or something, Mexico maybe.
Well, Justin's probably there waiting for him with a couple of jets, and he's got that connection there for those nice vacation spots. Yeah. Anyway, let's kick it off with Mark Carney talking tough here on trade here, free trade. Let's go.
And that's why we're announcing that Canada will be introducing a series of countermeasures to protect Canadian steel and aluminum workers and producers. And there's several, and I'm going to list them. First, Canada will adjust its existing counter tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum products on the 21st of July. At the end of that 30-day period, in other words, we're going to adjust them to levels consistent with the progress that's made at that point on the broader trading arrangements with the United States. Secondly, we will implement reciprocal procurement rules, ensuring that only Canadian producers and producers from trading partners that provide Canada with tariff-free reciprocal access through trade agreements can compete for federal government procurement of steel and aluminum. Troisièmement, le gouvernement établira de nouveaux quotas tarifaires de 100% sur les...
There you go. Tough
What's he doing with those elbows? Has he been doing bicep curls, do you think? Because it's elbows down, elbows up, elbows down. When are they going back down again? When's he going to come down on that curl?
They talk about Trump being like switching around decisions and stuff like that in stance. And I don't know, again, taking another page out of Trump's book.
It's a bit, it doesn't bode particularly well, does it, for us mere peasants who just have to deal with the consequences of these decisions, because it suggests that the noise coming out of the White House isn't very nice anymore, and that he's basically given up hope, at least for steel and aluminium. And I think that's right. That's the right thing to do. I think he's given up any hope of those tariffs being dropped, because the Americans, particularly Trump, they've been very silly and confusing and weird on most of this tariff stuff, but they haven't really been very inconsistent at all when it comes to steel and aluminium. And you can actually explain it. It's something you can explain to a 5-year-old, basically. Like if you want to have a fort, you've got to have pillows to build your fort. It's a very simple idea, and I think most people understand it, that they want to reshore production of steel, because you can't have a country, so you certainly can't have a military without a dominance in steel. So I feel like that one's there to last. And also, if you look at the British steel that people are talking about a lot as if it means anything, it doesn't really mean anything. But for all of the nice words said and the few concessions, there's not really much of a concession on those things, because they obviously take it very seriously.
I think those are you're right. Those are the two things that are going to have a tough time. But here in Canada, and we're going to talk about it later, Canada's chance to actually use, because we have a surplus of steel and aluminum that we produce, but not being used on BC ferries, and we'll talk about that later. So that's the puzzling part. That is absolutely the puzzling part, when Melanie Jolie, standing in the background there, said that we will use Canadian steel and aluminum in Canadian infrastructure.
But to my mind, he hasn't even been asked about it. No. Hasn't even been a question put to him. So what can you do,
We've got a question, yeah. We've got a letter here that we're going to talk about after on that. But But Parliament ready to go on vacation, right? Happy times for the 343 men and women fortunate enough to be MPs. Worked for just how long did they work? Not very long at all. And then they're about to go on vacation, And
And a lot of their work anyway was very much extracurricular and self-interested. It was things like campaigning to keep their jobs,
yeah. Yeah, so, but they're going to put that Bill C-5 out there today. And then after that, tough work and ready for a vacay.
Imagine that. Imagine having 3 months. I mean, and that's not even the only vacation they get.
No.
This is one among many. But can you imagine that? Like, what are they going to do? And these are the same people that whine about like, oh, I can't. I haven't had enough time to see my kids, and it's so depressing. I just want to leave politics so I can spend more time with my family. What else do you do? What do you do? You just wait around until a whip tells you how to vote, or a whip tells you what to say, question period or something like that. I mean, for God's sake, these people live such a charmed life. And I know, I have a feeling if our own MP there, Dan Albers, is listening, I'm not sure he will be, but if he is, he defends. He would reject that, and I feel obliged to say that and mention that, and other MPs would too. But he goes on like a summer tour, doesn't he, usually? And I imagine he's going to do that. He's going to do that again, probably, where he goes around and he actually tries to work. But obviously, not all MPs do that. A lot of them just have a laugh, don't they? They just do whatever they want while the money keeps coming in.
Pierre Poilievre was going to keep Parliament in session till he got a whole bunch of stuff done. And people voted, I guess, more Canadians voted to give the MPs their vacation time. So there you go.
Yeah. And I mean, I've put in that little 5 things there. Their base salary is $210,000 a year. Yeah. But obviously, so many of them get more because it's easy to get little add-ons here and there. So they actually get quite a bit more than that. That's like, that's not an unheard of salary in this country, obviously. I speak to people in Toronto and places like that, and it's actually quite normal to get pretty high salaries like that. But to get a salary like that, usually you're working all the time. You might get sort of 10 days off a year or something like that, but you're working constantly for a salary like that. I think the thing that makes it unique is that they don't really have to work. And even the days when they are working, they're not really working, are they? They're just like conspiring in their office or whatever, or talking to the whip, talking to the leader or something. It's like, come on,
get a job. There's a lot of gravy on top of that mashed potatoes as well, with a lot of their travel paid for, a lot of their other stuff paid for, plus, like you said, their positions that they get nominated for, all kinds of.
And then the pension, lest we forget, which is just like a lifetime. It's the easiest pension in the world to obtain. I think it's only 6 years, isn't it? And then it's just a lifetime of security and comfort.
That's the barbecue sauce on top of the gravy.
Yeah, and a nice beer maybe as well.
And they talk tough too. They talk tough on Bill C-5, and it looks like it's getting watered down even a little bit more. The Conservatives put that one piece in there. We talked about that yesterday, but now there's another. They backed down on face of relentless pressure from First Nations leaders who in a measure that Bill C would not be allowed to sidestep the Indian Act. The Liberals said they would remove that power from the bill, which is designed to speed up completion of infrastructure projects. But the Assembly of First Nations National Chief Cindy Woodhouse has not been placated, arguing the changes don't go far enough.
This is just, everybody thought it was going to be different, didn't they? They thought this time it's different. There's a consensus now. We've got Carney in. Even the Liberals are talking about getting stuff done. But it's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's just playing to the old script. I was going to say just a little bit more slowly, but it's not even slower, is it? It's the same speed that this usually happens. Like big, bold ideas. We're going to be a real country now, guys. We're going to break down the barriers. We're going to build stuff.
One economy.
Yeah, one economy. We're going to be so prosperous. We're going to have a much better deal with the US and all this kind of thing. And then in the game of whack-a-mole, up pops Quebec, up pops environmentalists, up pops First Nations. And the trick this time, Mr. Carney, if you were wondering, was to whack-a-mole, was to actually do it for once. But instead, no, it's like, up pop First Nations. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll completely change the legislation because you've complained. Then Quebec will get, Quebec's already had, the mole has already come up, hasn't it, with Quebec, where they just said, you're not having that pipeline, by the way. Carney's like, all right then, you can veto it, guys. BC's popped up. That's another mole. It's like, there you go. No, if you don't want it, BC, don't worry about it. So in other words, this is the Trudeau government again. We're just back to where we started.
Yeah, and our Foreign Affairs Minister, Anita Anand, has been given the opportunity to speak about herself at length in a fawning article in the Canadian press. Imagine that. The minister has already been severely criticized for her remarks about the Hamas-Israel war, praised herself as action-oriented, and said she enjoys having difficult responsibility. We have much work to do. We cannot waste any time doing it. Yeah, I read through some of that article, and yikes.
No, I would say, like, I know we do say this quite a lot, but I'm saying this, like, if possible, I'm underlining this. Please read this article. It's available everywhere because it's the Canadian press. So if you just type in Anita Anand Canadian press or something like that into Google, you'll find it all over the place. Please read this article because this is one of the worst articles I've ever read in my life. And I say that sort of thing quite a lot. This is an atrocity committed against journalism, where they've gone up to one of the most powerful people in Canada and they've just said, all right, tell us about yourself, kind of thing. And they've just like written these. It's the most worshipful article that I've ever seen. And you could read an article in like a very right-wing newspaper where they interview a right-wing MP or left-wing with a left-wing MP, and they do similar sort of things, but they do at least acknowledge challenges. And this, they don't. This is awful. This is like the biggest pile of garbage I've ever seen. And to go back to our favorite subject, this undermines trust in Canadian democracy and Canadian institutions. She's a very powerful woman. She's been in power 5 minutes in this job and already made an absolutely gigantic mistake and alienated one of Canada's primary allies, Israel, to such an extraordinary extent that the Prime Minister of Israel accused the Prime Minister of Canada of being, what was it, anti-human or something like that, not understanding human civilization, like some sort of enormous insult to Mark Carney, based in part on her quite foolish words that she used to describe the war against Hamas.
Yeah,
and that's not mentioned in this article. That's not even mentioned. Instead, it's just her saying, oh, I'm really action-oriented and I love to do things. And then the next line of the copy written by Canadian press is, oh, yeah, and she did a great job with procurement during COVID. Did she do a good job during procurement?
I was just going to bring that up.
Quite a lot of things were bought during COVID that are a waste of money, aren't they? But now forget about that.
I was going to say, like, that was her accomplishment on her resume there, the procurement during COVID. What a waste of money. And then again, the question to ask is, where are the F-35s that were ordered back when Harper and then Trudeau kiboshed them, and then now they talked about bringing them back in 2023. And by the time we get them, they're going to be out of date. And but it is the jets that the Israelis are flying and using quite extensively right now. And we have, how many of them? Anita? Zero. And then no timeline for any of this stuff, because she says she's the such a procurement lady. Like, procure something then.
But she also says that, like, now she's all about foreign affairs and it's all going to be action oriented and she's the genius and she's the greatest person to have ever lived, etc., etc. I almost don't blame her, because that's what the press and the other politicians say about her all the time. In that sort of environment, you might actually think that you're good and competent. I imagine, if people are just telling you that all the time. But now she's in charge of foreign affairs and she's talking about revolutionizing it all and making it all great. What have you done so far? Yeah. You've alienated Israel. You've really upset the Americans on a number of occasions as well, and been rebuked more than once by the Americans. What are you doing? Where are your successes? Can you point to any yet? And then the plan is, we believe in peace. Good for you.
And then she also, in that article, you can read between the lines, and then she isn't very complimentary to Melanie Joly, the former Foreign Affairs Minister.
Well, I guess, indirectly you could take that as being a bit of a dig. I mean, inevitably, so many of them will despise one another, because that's always the case in any sort of government, I would say.
Well, we also do Fool of the Day, and this guy, we're going to hear a clip from Francois-Philippe Champagne, always in contention along with Melanie Joly, but let's listen closely here to Francois-Philippe Champagne.
Why did you set up a $95 billion borrowing authority for geopolitical risk if we're going to get a deal with the U.S.? Well, listen, we've always been clear since day one that we want to have no tariffs and that we're fighting for Canadian workers, the industry, and at the same time building our country. So we would continue, and we're continuing. I mean, you've seen it. We just had the G7. Prime Minister was there with the President. The Minister LeBlanc has been very active. We're very, very engaged to defend Canadian interests.
But 95 billion is a lot of money to borrow, right?
Well, listen, you know, we have a number of tools in the toolbox. You know, what Canadians expected us when we started that was to fight for them, but at the same time be prudent when it comes to looking at what we might be able to do to support industry. You've seen that we're now affected by unfair steel and aluminum tariffs. So we've been there to fight. We've been there to support the industry, the workers, and at the same time favor also domestic consumption of what we produce in Canada.
Okay.
That's why he's the best. That's why he's the best in the world. That's why whenever he's in, it's going to be hard to win Fool of the Day. Because he's good. He's really good.
He didn't use the word catalyze. I'm surprised. I was waiting for that word. I was like hanging there, waiting for them to use that word. Investment in Canada, it's getting tougher, and that's what have they done so far to convince people to invest in Canada? And here's this little chart here showing the investment by our pension fund here in Canada and how much they've invested over the years. If you look in 2005, it was all Canadian investment, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and here till 12% in 2025. And how are we going to convince people to invest in Canada when, like you talked about steel and aluminum, when we can talk about British Columbia later, we're sending our investment dollars overseas to China, and this goes over and over again, including Mark Carney moved the Brookfield Asset Management, one of Canada's larger companies, to move the headquarters to the United States. It's because there's better access to capital. So, I don't know.
And he also made sure to move pension funds out of Canadian tax jurisdiction, didn't he? Which, again, undermines faith in Canada for the ordinary person, but also for big institutions.
One of the people that continues to fight for Canada, and I know a lot of people have a different opinion, but it's Danielle Smith, and she's showing off this Nanos poll that says 73% of Canadians support an Eastern pipeline from Alberta.
This is from a while ago, this poll. I don't know why she said new Nanos poll. But yeah, I mean, undeniable that many polls, I mean, basically every poll that I've seen during and since the election has shown this. But I mean, you know, and then both Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney in a very vague sort of ambiguous fashion, you know, gave their support to pipelines and the building of energy infrastructure, let's put it like that. And that means that 90% or something, or 80% of Parliament consists of MPs elected on platforms like that, and yet apparently it doesn't matter, because a minority in the country can complain, and then the roller coaster just crashes. The train goes off the tracks, and suddenly democracy doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter that the vast majority of the country wants something to happen. You know, is it any wonder? Again, here I go. But is it any wonder that people have no faith in democracy to solve problems? Have no faith in the Canadian government to actually do even the basics? Why is anybody even asking that question? It should be so obvious.
Yeah, and then Quebec downgrades projections of emissions reduction, and guess who they blame? They blame Trump. It said it's been forced to scale back its projections of greenhouse gas emissions reductions because of Donald Trump. The province said the U.S. had created a challenging environment for advancing climate action, which does not allow the deployment of measures so quickly and effectively as planned.
What's so funny is they talk about how cruel it is, and they've done this loads of times, that the federal government has got rid of the federal carbon tax, because they're sat there like absolute, you know, if you want a fool of the day, it's got to be just Quebec, hasn't it? Full stop. Because they're sat there with their stupid carbon tax, and they're just like, oh, we can't compete. Like, this isn't fair. Just get rid of it.
Yeah. And then some MPs are protesting a cabinet bill that will prohibit cash deposits at the bank of $10,000 or more. And then, you know, Holly Doan Blacklock's story says that, you know, a Strawberry U-Pick collects over $10,000 in cash a day. And so they're making it really, really hard. Bill C2, this is that other bill from that cabinet minister that is likely not up to the task. Bill C2, an act representing certain measures related to the security of the border. States, banks, credit unions, charities, and other federally registered business must not accept a cash payment, donation, or deposit of $10,000 or more in a single transaction, or in a prescribed series of related transactions of $10,000 or more. Mandatory reporting of $10,000 is already in place. You just have to say where you got it from.
But why is it always $10,000? It's I mean, that just seems ridiculous after decades of devastating inflation.
Yeah, it's been around forever,
as is
right?
highlighted here. $10,000 to a small business isn't really that much money, is it?
They never adjust those numbers, right? Like $10,000 has been around forever as a thing. It's just like, remember we talk about the psychology of numbers when we talk about the market? They just seem to have this psychological number in their head, and they're just like, it's 10,000, even though 10,000 is worth by like 5 today, right? So, and
it might have made sense once. It might have been somewhat reasonable once, but yeah, and I mean, now it just seems to be it's capturing everyone.
Yeah, and then Bill C2 also repeals legislation dating back to 1867 that prohibits postal inspectors from opening their letters deemed suspicious. Current search powers are limited to larger parcels. The bill also grants police new powers to interrupt mail in transit. Currently, police are limited to flagging suspicious mail for investigation after delivery. Bill C2 would give the government to search people's mail on a whim, said Conservative MP Carrie Diot. This does not help catch criminals. The bill is referred to as the Strong Borders Act, where there's a poison of plenty in it. Mail, something we once saw as sacred, was untouchable. It was a criminal code offense to open mail. Now the government wants to open it, inspect it, and use it against us. There you go.
I find that funny when it says repeals legislation dating from 1867. Something happened in that year, didn't it? That maybe should be pointed out, like the invention of the country. But so this is, it's completely unprecedented then in that case, isn't it? It's literally something that's never been allowed in Canada since the existence of Canada. But here we go. Strong borders means I'm looking in your mail.
So they've got a problem with immigration that, and just like vetting people coming in. And then they look to, instead of fixing that, they look to fix some of the tools that these people have been using. Do you know what I mean? And they just, instead of fixing the real problem, they're going after, just like they did with Airbnb, and there's a housing crisis. So we got to find a villain. And in this case, they're going to find the mail as the villain as opposed to dealing with the real crisis. And
it also happens to give them lots more power as well, lots more control over people. And that was the story of the war on terror, so-called, wasn't it? Where to fight Islamic extremism, they decided to basically persecute the majority of the population for when they just wanted to go on a plane and do all sorts of other things. And they justified it saying, Islamic terrorism, guys, although they stopped using the Islamic bit when that started to become uncomfortable for them. But I mean, I would say, I think some of this as well is probably related to all those fentanyl precursor chemicals that people get sent, don't they? And people send drugs by mail and the materials necessary to produce drugs. And I don't really know what you're supposed to do there. I don't know if dogs can sniff out fentanyl precursor and things like that. I think it's actually pretty much impossible. But what I don't understand is how they're not going to open everybody's mail. So it's still going to get through, isn't it? Unless you have some sort of system of doing it en masse.
And this gives me some hope because, again, the committee hearings now in Canada, the Liberals don't have the NDP to squash all the investigations. And here's another one that just got reopened. The MPs vote 5-4 to reopen the 2024 investigation into that $9 million luxury penthouse for Tom Clark. Investigation had lapsed on April 28th. So the Commons Operations Committee voted yesterday 5-4 to reopen that investigation into that $8.8 million Manhattan penthouse for New York consulate Tom Clark. The Liberal MPs, do you think they opposed? Where were they on this motion? They opposed the motion. Liberals don't like to waste money on investigations, right? They don't want any investigations on the GC strategies, but they're not getting their way because they made sure the NDP was decimated, or the NDP did that for themselves. So there goes their help in there. This is where the Conservatives and the Bloc have some power to open up these investigations.
It's very interesting times. And this is what I mean. All of the fanfare and fireworks and celebration and like, let's build a statue to Mark Carney and all the rest of it going on in a certain side of this country. This is a much weaker government than Justin Trudeau's. Like,
Yeah.
remember that. Bear that in mind. This government is fragile. And I think, the polls suggest that Mark Carney actually and the Liberals are increasing in popularity, though, at the same time as this government's weakness becomes apparent. So the sort of instinct or the temptation on their part to call another election will be strong, I think, if his popularity continues to grow.
Here's the typical answer. Liberal MP Jenna Sudds yesterday said government caucus members opposed reopening the Manhattan penthouse because we have more emerging and pressing issues that are coming to light now. And she said we should focus on the future and move forward with the pressing issues. Jenna Sudds, no, we should find out where all the corruption lies and get rid of the people that are corrupt. That's what we should do, Jenna. Because until we get rid of that, how do we have faith in our government?
But I guess as well that means that every single thing that they're spending their time on now, like a 3-month vacation, for example, qualifies as more emerging and pressing.
Yeah.
So it's more emerging and pressing that Jenna Sudds has 3 months on vacation to enjoy a lovely summer break now. That must be more important than trying to find out if the Canadian taxpayer was ripped off in a purchase of a $9 million condo in New York City.
Yeah, basically what she's saying is we don't want anybody looking into this box of crap that we have because the NDP didn't allow anybody to look, and we would like it if nobody else would look in here as well. We would appreciate that.
But it's a similar, this is just another, the other side of the same coin of, stop politicizing things. Yeah. All you ever do is politicize. Like, we need unity at this difficult time for our country. And that's just another way of saying, yeah, we messed up, we made a mistake, and it's humiliating, but shut up about it because I don't want to talk about that. Thanks. Yeah.
That line has been used way too many times, and as media should not be tolerating it, and this fawning media definitely shouldn't. Well, we won't tolerate it, and we're working on a lot of the stuff here in British Columbia, and the BC NDP are trying to do that right now. And we'll talk about it here in a bit. But this is it's tough for accountants. This is Auditor General Karen Hogan. This is tough talk for them because accountants are very much, they like to couch everything. I'm an accountant as well. She said she's baffled by serial irregularities in federal contracting. And she said, I recommend the government find the root cause. Yes, more investigations. There you go. More, and dig deep. And let's get more investigated. Let's open up the COVID stuff. Let's open up all that stuff, and let's dig into it. And the auditors in the June 10th report said federal managers' involvement in irregularities may have breached an act of Parliament. The Financial Administration Act, the findings targeted GC Strategies, now blacklisted Woodlawn, Ontario supplier, awarded more than close to $100 million in information technology contracts until its offices were raided by the RCMP in 2024 on suspicion of fraudulent billing. Auditor Hogan yesterday said she could not explain the hiring of companies like GC Strategies. What is it about the procurement process in the federal government that a staffing company is the mechanism typically used for IT service? She asked the Public Accounts Committee. It is because the procurement process is complex and for those delivering those services don't want to wade through all of that and are happy just to go through a staffing company. I do think that is something the government needs to figure out. I don't see the value in telling the public service, follow the rules you already have in place because it creates the need to put an action plan in place. Yeah, and on and on and on. But that's tough talk coming from an accountant. There's a rot in the system.
That's very true to highlight. I mean, a lot of people will listen to this or they'll read the reports and they'll not quite understand that point that you've made, which is like these people are basically in a straitjacket. For so many reasons, they're not going to speak clearly and candidly. They have to use this couched language, and it's not just because of accountancy. There's like legal issues and there's all sorts of
I can
stuff
guarantee
going on
you,
there. But
if you had a pint and you were sitting down with her, she would use different language.
Yeah, exactly. But if you read between the lines, if you're abreast of these matters and you know the story a little bit, and then you read between the lines, this is damning. I think in many ways, Blacklocks here, who usually go all in, they're sort of underplaying this a little bit. I think this is absolutely damning. I mean, there's a line where she says, let's have a look. When we spoke to public servants, some at times were unaware of some of the requirements that existed in the procurement rules. So the people responsible for procurement didn't even know what the rules were.
Who's in charge?
These will be people all on like six-figure salaries, absolutely like living it up in Ottawa, and they don't even they quite literally don't know what they're doing. And she's just said that.
We just talked about the procurement expert that has it on her resume earlier. So Anita Anand obviously didn't explain it very well.
It's a good laugh, isn't it? And you wonder why so many people want to work for the government, either on the political side or just as government staff. I mean, what a laugh! What a laugh it is, and nobody's ever punished for mistakes. Like, another question that might naturally follow from this is: so they broke the law. Are they going to be arrested? Are they going to be fired? Are they going to be? What's going to happen to them? The answer is nothing. They'll be sat down having their nice lunch right now, enjoying a 90-minute lunch break or something like that in Ottawa. It's just a laugh, isn't it? They're probably going to get promoted.
I can remember once when I was doing an audit when I worked for a CA firm, and we found fraud. We were very careful on what we used words to. This is irregularities, right? Irregularities, because it's tough to make that accusation without making a formal complaint to the RCMP or something like that. So regularities is the word you would use. Yeah. So the Auditor General, this is another one here. This is a conservative, and I was going to play the clip, but I mean it's just kind of the same stuff. The Auditor General confirms GC strategists got paid without proving they did any work, and supposedly they're supposed to prove they got the work, and they didn't prove any work, and that's part of that was in this clip. It says they're supposed to show the work they did to get paid. I know, like, I've seen a lot of stuff in government contracts. Like, if you're a small business trying to get anything from the government, they make you do paperwork through the yin-yang. But obviously, GC Strategies knew a way to do it to circumvent any of that, or they had the right people at the top of the chain that just kind of just put the stamp on everything that they sent in. Wonder why.
Some damn fine procurement there from the Ottawa, wasn't it, during COVID?
I think you're probably one of the best students of history in the media landscape, and I would challenge anybody to be stronger than you at it. But yeah, this one must puzzle you. Diplomats celebrated the Soviets, and they celebrated none other than Stalin. Like, Stalin has a spectacular history, and I'd use spectacular in a very sarcastic way.
I mean, yeah. The only reason that we don't look at Stalin as being the most evil man in the history of the world is because he was our ally of convenience fighting against his main competitor, Adolf Hitler. That's literally the only reason. If things had gone different, his name would be as poisonous as Hitler's. And in fact, as you see in this article here, it is in some places, like among Ukrainians and some other people. Poles despise them as well.
Canada's ambassador to Russia has drawn protests after celebrating with tweets and flowers our diplomatic relations with Stalin. One Prairie senator, the descendant of Ukrainian homesteaders, yesterday expressed revulsion. Ambassador to Russia Sarah Taylor recently tweeted commemorating the establishment of diplomatic relations with the USSR, Stalin's repressive totalitarian regime responsible for the deaths of millions in the gulags and through mass starvation. Stalin. My mother.
So I'm looking at it here, and it looks like she hasn't name dropped Stalin here, has she? She's just said on this day in 1942, Canada and the USSR established diplomatic relations. I mean, obviously she hasn't thought, has she? And to be fair to her, there have been bigger gaffes committed, like Justin Trudeau's colossal stupidity in inviting an SS soldier to Parliament to be clapped.
But to be fair, she is the Russian ambassador. She understands Russian history.
No, that's correct.
It's not like
she understands Russian history, but maybe she doesn't understand Canadian history is the problem.
You know what I mean? But like even the Soviets or the Russians aren't much fans of Stalin. And
well, funnily enough, Putin has started to soften on Stalin quite a bit lately, which sort of makes sense given the turn that he's taken. But I think, I'm willing to get the bayonet on for anybody that's stupid enough to praise the Soviet Union or Stalin or whatever. But I feel like she's fallen into a trap that most people do fall into, I think, which is thinking that the Soviet Union was a normal country, particularly during the Second World War, rather than something similar to Nazi Germany. That has to be, you always have to couch whenever you discuss the Soviet Union, I think you have to bear in mind that you're talking about a country that is pretty much the equivalent of Nazi Germany. Bear that in mind. In many ways, worse. And she hasn't. But I mean, for all we know, it was some 23-year-old uneducated child who's fresh out of university that composed that tweet, because those are the kinds of people that do that job, But probably this highlights why it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a kid's job. It should be a very serious person's job to communicate on behalf of our diplomats.
Melissa Lantsman, an MP, conservative MP, calling out Melanie Jolie. And she said, perhaps you can call Anita Anand, follow your lead, but this time for real, based on actual things that happened. This is in regards to the hospital that was bombed by Iran. And that's an earlier tweet from Melanie Jolie, and that one that Israel was accused of bombing, and then it turned out that it wasn't.
Yeah, that was quite embarrassing for a lot of people. So that tweet is still there, is it? Oh, no, I guess not, since she's taken a screenshot of it. But I mean, look, these people, but like the Liberal Party's picked a side in their very sort of ambiguous fashion, very wishy-washy way. They've picked Palestine, haven't they? And they're not very happy about Israel, but at the same time, they're not being very vocal about it. They're trying to make it seem like it's all about international law and all of these grandiose concepts. But they want, they're on that side. They've picked a side. I wouldn't say they're like on the extreme end. They're sort of moderate pro-Palestine people, especially if you think about who their electorate is. Sort of, they're out of sync with their electorate. But that's it, isn't it, basically? Whereas the Tories are very, very clearly pro-Israel. Like, there's no hesitation, there's no question about it whatsoever. They're very, very pro-Israel.
And there's lots of allegations of, like this human trafficking, and a lot of people making money on both sides of the border here in illegal migrants and that. And here's even the corruption even gets worse. Canada's immigration system has reached the immigration department itself. It said staff tried to interfere with applications entered into Canada, with one asking a colleague whether they would accept money to approve it. You know what I mean? Like, so how deep is this corruption? And like we've heard here in Kelowna, we can't get anybody to talk about it, that there's, people paying up to $40,000 to get, like these work permits here in Canada.
Well, not to go all anti-immigrant, anti-myself here, but I did think it was a bit funny when I did my citizenship exam, the ceremony, that basically every member of staff from IRCC was foreign, certainly, but I think probably Canadian citizens, but they were not just foreign, but like they didn't really speak English very well. I'm just kind of thinking, like, you're the boss of this. You're the boss of making me a citizen of this country. It's naturally, if you employ lots of people from lots of different cultures and you give them control over things like this, there's a chance that they're gonna, that they're gonna behave as people behave around the rest of the world. And I'm sure you've experienced something like this before, but I remember I learned a lot about the world when I crossed the border from Laos into Vietnam, and it was not possible for me to cross. I tried many, many times. It wasn't possible for me to cross unless I bribed the immigration staff. You had to bribe them. It was just formalized, and it wasn't even, they weren't embarrassed. There was no like argument or anything. It was just, no, you bribe us. Like, that's how it works, and that's what most of the world is like. So you bring people from all around the world and you put them into the Canadian system. There's a good chance that they're going to behave like people do in the rest of the world, and I would say that possibly that's what's going on here. But I haven't read the article, so I might be guilty of ignorance and all sorts of other things.
So this is a CTV tweet. Canada Day canceled for the second consecutive year in Montreal. I thought we were supposed to be all celebrating Canada Day again, like all, because like during Trudeau's reign there, they didn't even want to celebrate Canada Day. All the celebrations of Canada were suspended in many major cities in Canada. And then when Carney needed to win the election, they really wrapped themselves in the flag. And here we go again. Now that they've won, they're going to cancel Canada Day in Montreal. That's the first one I've seen. So they're saying that they're worried about public safety.
But it was Montreal, wasn't it, where they had St. Paddy's Day, and Carney was there, jumping around, happy as Larry, wasn't he?
Well, that's different, though. St. Patrick's Day is important. Canada Day, not so much.
But also, in 4 days' time is Jean-Baptiste Day, isn't it? Which is a big Quebec day. Is that not going to happen as well? That would be the real interesting one.
That one's important because there's not a safety concern with that. There's safety is the number one priority when it comes to large events like the Canada Day.
It reminds me of don't leave your house under absolutely any circumstances whatsoever because there's a lethal virus going around. Then somebody is killed in an interaction with the police thousands of miles away in a foreign country, and then it's like you must go outside now and protest in massive crowds because it's a public health issue.
Yeah. And then this is our Bill C-18 section, and we're coming up to the big anniversary, but this is the tweet that I found here from CTV. Again, it doesn't say sponsored anywhere on it. New Canada Strong Pass offering discounts at national parks. Discounts, so coupons. Hey? So CTV is now promoting coupons. I did see a couple of Liberal MPs promoting it as well. Fair enough. It's their program, and they're promoting it. But why is CTV promoting it?
Well, why are the Liberal MPs promoting this, even though a lot of Liberal MPs probably see that this is garbage? The answer is because they want to keep their jobs. Yeah. Why is CTV promoting this when they know it's probably garbage? Maybe it's the same reason.
But yeah, you and I, we talked because we had one of our reporters actually do it, and you made them actually go and get, some rebuttal to it instead of just like putting up a piece that is basically promoting a coupon, really, for the Liberal government.
And there was nothing, the Conservatives hadn't even said anything about it, which sort of is interesting as well, why the Conservatives weren't bothered and the other parties. But by the way, I can confirm that Saint Jean-Baptiste Day in Montreal is going to go ahead. Well,
that's an important holiday. Canada Day, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the country that you live in. It's the country you live in, but it's not the nation that you live in.
There's no safety concerns with Jean-Baptiste Day, like as with Canada Day, because many Canadians don't like Canada, apparently.
That is just comical, isn't it? But whatever, do what you want, Quebec. You will anyway, so you might as well do what you want.
June 22nd was the second anniversary of the death of a free media here in Canada. That's the day that Bill C-18 received royal assent, making it law. So we're almost on the second anniversary. There you go. And it's this is what critics are saying about it. It's like government-empowered favoritism, mandatory payments, largely back big, well-connected media, not smaller independent voices. That's us, right? No money, leaving true pluralism diminished, and that's Meta blocking Facebook and Instagram for outlets, and critics warn Bill both breaches charter protections and limits information diversity, and it enhanced legacy media, not independent voices, driven platforms to ban news, weakened local and niche journalism, and eroded press freedom and rankings. This is all from ChatGPT. I'm not making this stuff up. There you go. And
they're citing. I'm looking at the sources here, and it's like The Guardian, Canadian Dimension. These are left-wing outlets, which is important to emphasize, I think.
And then the critics describe Canada's news environment post C-18. Ready for this? We're going to start using this. Ready? A zombie ecosystem. There you go. There's your freedom of press in Canada, where government subsidies haven't revived journalism, rather choked off independence and vitality. Ian and I say this every day. And Canadians voted for more of the same, and we have a suppressed, compromised media. Freedom of the press does not exist in Canada. And these are, like you said, left-wing outlets putting this stuff out. And this is what we have left in Canada. You can see it in the media. Like, why is CTV promoting liberal nonsense things like coupons? Why is the question. Why?
But it is funny, you mentioned niche, how it's harmed niche outlets. But I would say not all niche outlets, because it seems like certain niche outlets are sponsored in a very sort of very big way by the Canadian taxpayer, because the Liberal government has decided to sponsor them. And they just happen to be a lot of, like, the likes of the Thai, which I'm sure people in British Columbia will be familiar with, but very, very left-wing news outlet. You know, nothing against them for it, but they're very, very left-wing, like kind of BC style left-wing. But then there's also countless amounts of First Nations publications, including ones that go on about like genocide and how horrible Canada is, and literally put Canada in speech marks because it's like a colonialist name or something like that. It doesn't really exist. It's like, oh, Canada. And then it's when these people are in British Columbia. So it's kind of like, that's who we're funding. Those are the niche outlets that we fund with our taxes, rather than, I mean, how many do you want to talk about, even in BC, that have shut down in places like Kamloops?
Yeah. Anyway, 2-year anniversary. And even Stephen Fuhr, the MP here, the Liberal MP, said it needs to be repealed. And yet, is it? No.
Well, Stephen Guilbeault's just said that it's immoral to criticize it. So there you go.
We'll move on to some more international news. This is a Palestine action break into the RAF. What the kind of security is at the RAF? And they damaged 2 military.
Is the answer.
They damaged 2 military. We're going to play a little clip here. Turn the sound off, though. Yeah, thank you.
So that's the engine of a military aircraft there that they're fiddling with, spraying into.
Yeah. You know, why not? Why not? There you go. That's good enough.
I mean, obviously, these people, these Palestine fanatics, these anti-Israel fanatics, they'll do anything to get attention, and they're just sort of part of the furniture now. We're used to them. The interesting thing here, I think, is that the British military, the British government goes on and on all the time about all these risks from Iran and Russia and North Korea, and the infrastructure might be damaged, like undersea cables and things like that. And then here we are. This is the biggest RAF base in Britain. It's massive, and it has so many assets, like very expensive, sensitive assets in it. And these agitators got in, vandalized aircraft, and got out. Nobody stopped them.
So here's the and Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, he says it's disgraceful. I think you might want to look at your security and call that disgraceful.
But right? Also, like, what kind of punishment are they going to get? My feeling is that they'll get nothing. They'll either get off or they'll get like a suspended sentence or something, like a slap on the wrist. So the security's crap, and then the laws, the legal arrangement is also feeble. So they see this happen, and then nobody gets punished if they're even caught in the first place. Because it's England, remember, where people like stop ambulances and stuff in the middle of the road, and then they get arrested sometimes, and they don't even get punished. And so often they don't even get arrested. So it's bad security, and it's also just like terrible legal arrangement. So you kind of get what you deserve, don't you?
I accidentally in Honolulu drove into the air base there. Accidentally, like drove up to the gate without realizing where I was driving. It was a 4-lane highway going in there. And that was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. I was trying to explain that I was looking for the mall. They weren't really listening very well. But
that's the thing, like, some countries take it seriously. I would say America's probably one of them. Though I'm sure America has security flaws here and there. They've got a lot of infrastructure and military assets all over the place. But the Americans kind of do take it seriously, don't they? Like, when you see people trying to get into Area 51 and stuff, and there's like the Humvees are on the horizon, watching you. But obviously the English are just too stupid to even bother with that. Nobody, they thought that was like, oh well, that'll not happen. If they even contemplated it in the first place, they probably didn't.
America Airlines United paused Middle Eastern flights due to rising tensions, and like even Trump has said he's going to give it a couple of weeks, 2 weeks or less, to make his decision on what's, because it sounds like there's some talks going on, possibilities of maybe having a more peaceful resolution, even though Iran and Israel continue to exchange volleys.
Well, and verbal volleys as well. It doesn't sound like either of them is in the mood to give up.
And I put this in here because this is interesting. This girl, Sophie Cunningham, is the WNBA is really, Caitlyn Clark there really brought a name to the WNBA, and all of a sudden this girl just like, her jersey is like sold out, and she's rising quickly because she defended Caitlyn Clark. We'll just play a small clip here on Caitlyn Clark because she gets bullied quite a bit, and I guess she's the Wayne Gretzky of the WNBA right now. Let's play this small clip here. She looks a little better than Wayne Gretzky, though. And there's Caitlyn Clark getting fouled and then slapped or whatever, and then getting bullied quite a bit. And then just in the next play, this one here, this is Sophie saying, okay, this is how we foul. And then there you go. So anyway, she's making a name for herself in the WNBA and getting people to watch.
Yeah, which is pretty hard to do, isn't it, usually?
So they got a couple of stars now that are really drawing people into it. And there you go. I got, look at that. I even played the clip.
Yeah.
But, and then let's move on to BC and local news. And this is a mess. This is an absolute mess. And yesterday, a letter surfaced that was written in 2022 that really made this look even worse. And that there's been criticism on the interior health, the operation of interior health here for a long time now. And the ministry is going to have to address this. You put this story up yesterday. Maybe I'll let you go through some of it.
Yeah, well, this letter, I mean, it's in full in this story. If you scroll down to the bottom, basically the letter is just it's the mayors of Vernon, Kelowna, West Kelowna, Penticton, and Kamloops 3 years ago. So it's Colin Basran in Kelowna at that time, and they're just writing, talking about all these problems that they're having. So it's a letter to Adrian Dix, who used to be the health minister. All the problems they're having in interior health, and one of the main problems that they highlight is lack of communication from
Yeah, that's
from the
exactly
CEO specifically, who's Susan Brown, the same woman then as now, and she's under attack again for various reasons. All the drama at KGH, the pediatric ward being forced to close down, and doctors have come out saying it's really bad to work there. Yeah, culture of fear, which Susan Brown acknowledged. She said, yeah, I acknowledge there's a culture of fear. Bit odd for the CEO to say that, but so it's kind of just, this has been tactically leaked, obviously, by somebody at one of those cities, probably Kelowna, to try and put pressure on Susan Brown, I think, because she's under pressure already. The BC Conservatives want her fired. And obviously, whoever leaked this also wants her fired because they don't like her. Because I would assume that the same situation prevails, that there's not enough communication and that they resent that at City of Kelowna and these other cities. But yeah, I sent an email. It's all about interior health, this letter. It's sent to Adrian Dix, so it's sent to the BC government, and it's by the mayors, but it's all about interior health, basically. And I sent an email to Interior Health asking a few questions and saying, would you send me a statement over? And then after hours of not responding, they did respond and say, oh, this looks like it's about the Ministry of Health, so ask them. Here's their phone number. So not doing very much for their reputation of poor communication, I'm afraid. But to their credit, I guess, the health ministry wrote up a statement attributed to Josie Osborne in which she says, because she used to be the mayor of Tofino for the Green Party before she switched teams, and in that statement, she says, like, it's really important to speak to mayors. I understand that because I was a mayor. And then she says, I've spoken already to Tom Dias about KGH and so on and so on. But she ignored one of the main questions I asked, which was, what did Adrian Dix do in response to this letter? Obviously, that's not going to be revealed. We could submit an FOI and get a nice black piece of paper with all the lines crossed out, but that's the situation we're in now.
And I've asked several times now for a interview with the CEO, Susan Brown.
I highlighted an interview that we did in 2018 when she was appointed.
Yeah.
And that's well worth watching. It's in that story as well, because she talks about all the things that she's now under attack for, about how important it is to communicate and have a good culture and respect workers and things like that.
I keep getting told that they're looking into the interview, the possibility of an interview. And I have interviewed 3 elected MLAs here in our area, Gavin Dew, Christina Lowen, and Macklin McCall, all of them in regards to this. And I have asked for an interview with Susan Brown a couple of times.
Well, everybody's speaking about it, aren't they? Except the person that's being attacked. Although she did write that op-ed, to be fair.
Yeah, and then, like there obviously needs to be a change in direction here. And I don't understand, like, interior health is a mess, and it's not interior health even, but interior health, definitely a mess, because we have another ER closure that we can talk about here too. Another disaster for Lillooet is ER shut down on Friday and Saturday. So this goes way past just KGH. This is like, this time, this has been one of the worst hit ER closures in BC Interior this year. And we've written about that extensively. And then it's not just interior health, though, I want to say, because there's also Fraser Valley, and it says that how many times have we asked Adrian Dix when he was the health minister for an interview or a comment or anything? And just, it seems like they don't believe they answer to anybody. Bonnie Henry would only take questions from certain media, when they had basically that Dr. Henry was running this whole province. Hogan basically gave the reins to her. Well, she flew around in helicopters.
She's hard to get a hold of, yeah.
Was promoting barbecue sauce, selling shoes, promoting her book. She was doing a lot of things, and then they wouldn't answer questions. They wouldn't be held accountable. And Adrian Dix definitely wouldn't be held accountable. Still, I mean, how many times have we asked for that? And then the city in that 2022 letter shows unaccountability too, because they wouldn't even converse. They're here. She actually works here. Why couldn't she communicate with the mayor and council? And
yeah, you could you could walk there, couldn't you? Walk between the offices.
The communication department here at Interior Health is over 10 people. I can't remember the exact number. It's 12, 14 people. And what do? What do they have? A lack of communication, steady, right? And I've talked to some of them off the record. It just, you can't get anything, because they always just want to refer like this letter. When you sent that, asked for a quote, and they said, well, talk to the minister. So why do we have so many people on the payroll here and in communications if nobody wants to communicate when they just want to send you to the minister? I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems like a waste of money.
I think from our perspective anyway, as media, that's where we can speak about our own experiences, I guess, there, and yeah, it can be tough. I mean, they usually do respond in some way. It's just they never really they don't often give you what you want, let's say. They don't often answer directly. But this Lillooet thing, just to highlight that again, sorry, because I think this is just an absolute catastrophe in Lillooet, isn't it? It's the second time this week already. But Friday night, that just struck me there. So it's from 7 a.m. today all the way through till 8 a.m. on Saturday. Friday night must be the busiest, one of the busiest nights, at least for an ER. If you think about it, like people getting drunk and stuff like that, and opportunity for all kinds of madness. And people are off work, so they jump into the river or something like that. It's like, it's so terrible. I feel that they have to drive 2 hours. Like, there's a distinct possibility that somebody's going to get drunk in Lillooet today and snap their leg in half. Then they have to go over a mountain road for 2 hours in the middle of the night to Kamloops to get emergency treatment. I know we've done this loads of times, but I just feel like that's not cool, is it? That's terrible, really.
We've reached out to the Lillooet mayor for comment, and they weren't keen on talking about it because like lots of times there's a threat. If you talk, if you speak out, then you get less, and they already got less. So I'm not sure why they're not speaking, because the mayor has spoken out several times, and is quite vocal, and he was
Also,
quite angry
Oliver has spoken out.
He's quite. I interviewed the Oliver mayor. He's quite angry about the the COVID restrictions that lost him 2 ER doctors there in Merritt, that they wouldn't lift. But it's tough to get people to go to Merritt, and then to put those rules in place, and that lost him 2 people that hard to get back, right? And then right now, I think that the story's out there. Josh sent it to me, and I haven't done anything with it yet, or I'm not sure if you have. The BC government has set up some coffee stands and giving away free coffee in Seattle there to try to tempt doctors and nurses there with a free coffee to come work in British Columbia. I mean, I wonder what the hospitals think down there of this free coffee.
They must find it quite amusing, I think.
But if you're upset at the BC NDP, here's some advice from our premier himself from the past. Let's play this clip here.
Out of hand.
As a lawyer, I've represented people who have been involved in protests and perhaps faced criminal charges coming out of that.
An activist himself, Dave Eby says one of the main reasons people have taken to the streets is because they feel cheated by their government.
I understand. Yeah, but you do have a right. You do have a right to protest on the
And
as a lawyer, I've represented people who have been involved in protests and perhaps faced criminal charges coming out of that.
An activist himself, Dave Eby says one of the main reasons people have taken to the streets is because they feel cheated by their government.
I understand. Yeah, but you do have a right. You do have a right to protest on the property, just when it changes over from a protest to a campsite, right?
Yeah. There you go. So if you're upset with the BC government over healthcare and all that kind of stuff, David Eby's got your back.
It's funny how these people keep getting into power. Like Stephen Guilbeault is another one that comes to mind.
Oh.
It's like handing the keys to the prisoners in a way, isn't it? Keys to the prison to the prisoners.
And then, like I said, we talked about this over and over and over again. There's so many pots on the stove, the NDP stove, that are boiling over, absolutely boiling over. And just absolutely just like health. And then this BC Ferry one too. This could well be their biggest scandal yet. And this is another person saying, you're the skipper, you're the one in charge. And then this is the one, Rob Shaw put this out there. And Dan Elbis pointed out that Friedland sent a letter that she wrote to David Eby on the Chinese state-owned ferry shipyard. And Dan's asked for the copy of that letter, and the NDP are not really coughing up the letter. Imagine that, another letter out there that they're not willing to share. Release the letter. Hey, release the letter. Let's have a look, Mr. Eby, because we have a right, don't we?
That's quite interesting from Freeland, though. That would certainly get. That would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's the Liberal government is just trying to pretend that this has absolutely nothing to do with them. But it would be interesting to see them dragged into it a bit more.
Yeah, but anyway, release the letter, Mr. Eby. Release it. Let's have a look. Let's look at markets. So. This is a big one here. Canadian retail sales, we talked about because they were all promoting about how retail sales were up last night, because that was that people were front running the auto tariffs. So retail sales fell 1.1% in May, largest drop in a year, and that really was had to do with people like fronting, like trying to rush ahead of some of the tariffs that were coming in, right? So, and the economy not doing very well, and but in the markets then generally, right now, markets are, again, still muted as people are wondering what's going to happen here. Like very little going on. Gold, again, as I just try to find it here, gold is, again, marginally, not much change in gold either. And then Bitcoin. Bitcoin was up this morning when I looked earlier, and it's down a little bit right now. Again, still hanging into that 100,000 range. They're kind of bouncing around there. At 103, almost 104, so not really moving much. And yeah, so not much going on in the markets. Market's kind of hanging on. And then there's this, the billionaire, the Chinese billionaire out of Vancouver there, is facing some pushback on those leases that she's trying to get from Hudson Bay. And they're saying they don't want her. The mall owners are saying they don't want her in the mall. The document says landlords representing 23 of the leases that the group 25 Ruby Lee purchased won't approve the plan and would oppose any potential future forced assignment. So, but no more details are released other than that. So yeah, you got an image up there that doesn't pertain to that. But yeah, let's see. Elon Musk's X offer is to offer investment trading in the super app push. And we'll see if that comes to bear in the technology section that we're kind of like talking about now. So there you go.
And also it says introducing credit or debit card as well. So it could be a payment app too. Well,
again, Elon Musk, I mean, the first thing he wrote was Zip2, which was basically an online directory. That's how he got his start. He sold that. I think he got 30 million or 20 million bucks out of that first deal. Plowed that into X.com, which he owned way back, which was PayPal and that. So PayPal, he hung on to the domain name X.com. Sold PayPal, made a couple $100 million, I think, on that one. And then parlayed that into SpaceX and into Tesla. And then bought X later with the money from Tesla when he sold shares in Tesla to buy X. And so he has this thing for the word X anyway, or the letter X. And his little one is, one of his little ones is called X.
Yeah. Very, very old. I've never known anybody with such a strong interest in that letter. I wonder what it's about.
So if you want to get a job with Tesla, maybe make your middle initial X or something. Maybe you can. Anyway, more in the tech stuff here. It says, I watched that interview with Elon Musk, and he says he's done with politics. And he said, why fight on the beach when you have a 100-foot tidal wave of superintelligence coming to remake everything anyway? So he said it's kind of pointless. And
so why did you do it then?
Yeah, I guess he wasn't thinking. I think he got his nose bloodied in that one, for sure. Tesla's
and
Model
spent
Y,
a lot of money as well.
Tesla's Model Y robotaxi service will run between 6 a.m. and 12 a.m. midnight every day of the week. And Sawyer Merritt, a guy that follows Tesla very well, and I follow him, said he's been invited as one of the first people to use the robotaxi there in Austin on Sunday. So there you go. It's go time.
Why would you shut them down at the quietest time on the roads? That doesn't really make sense to me.
I have no idea. And this is, you know, like the Canadians, they're pushing for this EV mandate. And this guy posted this Ryan. We follow him on X as well. And he says, like, look at all the cars just in this small kilometer on the 401. And he said, all those got to be converted to electric. That's just 1 kilometer of the 401. Just like there's no thought.
Such a disgusting sight, isn't it? What a horrible thing to look at that is.
I've been on the 401. That is a disgusting sight. It just doesn't move. And
yeah,
but didn't say all those are going to convert to electric. Good one. Good one.
Well, the thing is, if they did convert to if they went over to self-drive, it might actually be possible to move, because then you wouldn't have idiots slamming their brakes on at the wrong time and causing the chain reaction.
It's a slinky, right? It's like a slinky, and it's a really slow slinky sometimes. And here's Brian Lilly put out this piece. Stellantis ramps up gas-powered vehicle production at Windsor. Again, if you don't drop the EV mandate, all these legacy automakers are moving back towards gas cars. Like they're investing billions. Like I think GM is investing close to $1 billion in a new gas engine. They're not going to stick around. If you're going to punish them with an EV like a $20,000, I think it starts next year. If they make more than their allotment, they got to pay a $20,000 tariff on each vehicle made over their allotment. And that's going to get passed on to you, obviously, because they're not going to eat it.
It becomes difficult, though, for them to laugh off people like Danielle Smith when she says, you know, let's build this pipeline for the next 50 or 60 years or something. Their instinctive reaction now is, nobody's going to be using oil in 60 years. Yeah. Like, we're going to be way past peak oil then. Don't be silly, Danielle. You silly girl. They can't do that anymore if they drop this mandate and come to the realization that people actually still want to drive gas cars and that they still have a use and a purpose, and therefore that demand for oil will persist.
And I am not a proponent of either. I think let the technology determine where it goes. I drive an EV. I drive a Tesla. And I also have solar on my roof. But I also believe that people should have a choice. And there's some areas I've lived in, northern Alberta, northern British Columbia, northern Manitoba. And I know that the EV wouldn't be the best choice up there. And most of Canada is tough. It's a rugged area that requires gasoline cars. And but here's Elon Musk with solar power in China will exceed all sources of electricity combined in the USA in 3 to 4 years. China has made a huge investment in solar, and that's what we're missing is investment. And that's the point of this, not just investment in solar, but investment. And you know, Canada leads in SMR technology, yet we don't deploy it. I think we have one going into play in Ontario, but that's it. In British Columbia, they don't want SMRs. They don't want anything nuclear. They don't want natural gas, because Ford has tried to get that LNG plant here for backup power here in the Kelowna area. Said no. So
they like windmills. They like wind turbines, don't they? But I don't think that's going to be enough, is it? Or even close to enough to fuel the future.
To rub two sticks together because you might release some carbon. So, I don't know.
Then the obvious conclusion is that what's going to happen is what happened in Europe and in England as well, which is rationing, either formally or indirectly, informally, like rationing through price.
More power,
or rationing literally from the central grid, saying, okay, you've had enough today.
More power from the government that refuses to be held accountable. There you go.
But it's like, how many times have we heard now that the future is energy in terms of data centers and all the rest of it, like and computers, that this is going to take massive amounts of energy, and EVs, obviously that's another one. We keep hearing it, and then we sort of turn. You're looking at that, hearing it, and then you turn to look at the government wherever you are in the Western world, and they're just like shooting themselves in the foot.
Other than the Americans that are going whole hog on nuclear, coal, LNG, gas, and here's Canada saying they don't want any of that. They want, I'm not sure what they're going to get the power from.
Hydrogen.
But we're going to be hydrogen. Good one. Again, we can pull up that chart of Ballard and show you where hydrogen's at. And here's our health section, and then we have this doctor, I follow him quite a bit, explaining to you, the colors that are put into even like salmon, farm salmon. Let's play a little clip here from him here.
Is the consumption of tap water. I mean, you have to stop all of the consumption of tap water, or you have to...
okay. That's the wrong one. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. It was, he was just talking about the salmon is farmed and it's actually white, and they dye it, actually give it to that pink color. So like one of the big things they're trying to get rid of in the United States for sure is getting rid of all those dyes in foods. That imitation crab you buy as well? The one you buy...
For the sushi, for your cheap sushi.
And then it's red, and then if you look at the ingredients on it, it's actually like crushed up beetles that are actually causing the...
Yeah. Well, it is, isn't it? It's quite a famous beetle, isn't it? Because they've used it for a long time now.
It's a fancy name.
With a C.
Yeah, it's a really fancy name that you can't pronounce, but it's actually just crushed up beetles. So
is it? I think I've seen it here. Cochineal or something?
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Yeah. It's quite a famous animal. Or cochineal? Is that how you pronounce it? Cochineal? Okay.
But again, like dyes, like try to avoid them.
Certainly when they have like very strange names, like they have like 10 syllable names and then usually a number at the end. It's like, yeah, maybe give that a miss.
Yeah, we're into that the section here. Are you serious? And we got our fool of the day to do. And Brett there says most Canadians haven't been up north. Yeah, I've lived in High Level, Alberta, Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, Thompson, Manitoba, and traveled all throughout the north there for a long time. And it's a beautiful place. It's a different kind of beautiful. And I think most people that come to Canada should spend some time in the north before they get to move to places like Toronto, and Ottawa, and Vancouver, and Kelowna. But anyway, Let's go to this. Here's our memes for today. We are in a real crisis created by this guy who was advised by this guy. So it's a loop. It's a circular loop. We're in a simulation. It's a loop. This is an AI one, but here's this guy talking about property in Canada here and some of the values.
Hey, dream home hunters! Brad's back with unbeatable deals across Canada. Let's tour some steals.
First up, Toronto. One bullet hole, tons of charm, just 2.3 mil.
Next, Vancouver. This cozy studio, aka someone's illegal laneway shed, has ocean vibes if you squint. Only 1.9 million.
Over in Victoria, this rustic retreat is perfect for minimalists who love tetanus. Prime location near the dump. 1.7 million, baby. Finally, Kelowna. This modern condo is ready for your Pinterest dreams or an exorcism. Just 1.5 million. Call me before it's gone. Brad's Bargains, where your wallet cries.
They even had Kelowna. There you go.
I don't know why did he become Australian for one of those houses?
Not sure, but I think we gotta put in Melanie Jolie because she wants to be considered for Fool of the Day, and we're gonna play this clip here.
Ambitious, isn't she?
Review of American fighter jets. Where is that at, buying those? Is the review wrapped up? Is it close?
So the government is obviously continuing its consultation. I had the chance to sit down with Lockheed Martin, with Boeing, with Saab as well. And our goal is to make sure, and my goal is to make sure that we're able to attract more jobs in the country. And meanwhile, the Minister of Defense is working on making sure that our very brave men and women are well supported, as of course they defend Canada's sovereignty and make sure that the world is much more peaceful.
What do you think her reaction would be if she asked you a question that she really wanted to know the answer to and you answered it like that? I have a feeling that she would start pulling your eyeballs out.
She would get very angry.
Why does she think it's okay to do that to the Canadian people then? This is her every time. The only thing she knows how to do is respond with a non sequitur when she's asked a serious question.
The question is, and we asked it earlier, when is Canada buying the F-35s?
The question really should be, when is Canada going to have political representatives that respect the Canadian population? Because she obviously doesn't. That is not respect.
Their answer is like, let's have a committee and let's dole out more money in this, what the Auditor General called a procurement irregularities.
But it's just like, I need, these people keep us safe. The Canadian men and women in uniform who keep us safe. What? You what? What are you talking about? Answer the question.
This is all the people that voted for more of the same, and this is here's your meme. I hate thinking. There you go. Elbows up.
I mean, usually I find this a bit crass, this kind of meme, but it does seem to be rather opposite at this time. There were a lot of people that just thought, and it's not trust the government. I think that's the wrong way to phrase it. It was, I trust Mark Carney, wasn't it? That's what it was.
And then this one here is, I was going to play the clip, but I don't think I put the link in there. Or maybe there is, the link is in there. And this one is, and the Democrats in the United States, 73 days before, we're going to play this clip here.
Mr. Secretary, I want to go back to some of your earlier testimony, be sure I heard it correctly. The 76-day period you're talking about, that's the period between the time that President Trump was elected and President Biden left office. Is that right?
That is correct.
And during that short period of time, 76 days, how much taxpayer money went out the door of the Department of Energy?
From the Loan Program Office in loans and commitments, $93 billion. Well over twice as much as in the previous 15 years.
That's good there. That's good. So those people got very efficient in those 73 days.
Just like the pardon department That got very efficient as well, didn't it?
Very efficient. They really got very efficient, making sure that much money went out the door. And then here's another one here. American firm employing Mark Carney's wife receives huge contracts from Government Canada. Why not? Hey?
It smells a little bit like farmed salmon, doesn't it?
And if you want lunacy, this bill that they're trying to run through the U.S. Senate, it likely is coming here as well. But here, listen to this. This is just, it's got to be like completely crazy.
Senate Bill 38 going to the Texas House, and this bill seeks to keep squatters out of our house. Democrats have fought for 2 hours for the right, I don't even know how to say this, for the right of people that don't belong in your house to stay in your house. In the event that you leave for a month or two and a squatter goes in and takes your house over, Democrats are fighting for the ability of those people to be able to stay in your house. It's the most jacked up thing I've ever heard.
Squatters' laws are absolutely nuts. They're insane, aren't they? And they're all over the place. It's like it's worth having a look at what it is in your area before you go on a long vacation.
Well, I mean, just like this kind of nonsense will likely come to Canada at some point. I mean, some of the stuff that they've done already with people's property is ridiculous, right? Like this Airbnb thing that happened here. Like, there's so many people angry about it in BC over this thing. And the NDP are not even considering to listen about what they've done to the tourism industry here and to people that have invested in, again, my big question from all of this today is, what will convince Canadians and companies in Canada to invest in Canada? Like what's here right now that will convince you? When you listen to Melanie Jolie, does that strike confidence in you? Does that make you want to say, hey, like Canada sounds like a great place to invest? Philippe Champagne there, Francois Philippe Champagne. Does that strike confidence? Like what is it going to convince these companies to come to Canada to invest? Unless they're going to get corporate welfare. Do you know what I mean? Like, Honda, how much did they get? Billions and billions of dollars to make an EV plant, which they now canceled. Northvolt, Lion Electric. How many should we name that are defunct now that took corporate welfare? Even one here, and it looked like, I can't remember the name, it starts with H, I think. I can't remember, I don't want to say it in case I get it.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of that one. Yeah, that was a big one, wasn't it?
Electric trucks, where they took the money, they took $10 million from the BC government and then said, yeah, no, it's not going to work here. So, I don't know. Like, fool of the day, though.
Fool of the day, I have to say sorry, because he does try, and he does a really good job every single day, pretty much. Champagne. I am sorry, friend, but it's got to be Melanie Jolie for deciding to effectively give the finger to the Canadian public once again, while looking sort of unhappy to have been asked a question, which is another one of her specialisms.
Yeah, so she did a bang-up job with foreign affairs, like a bang-up job, that Anita Anand is now in charge of. Now she's in charge of jobs and innovation.
Industry, right? Yeah. Well, industry, it's three, isn't it? Industry, jobs, and innovation.
So what is she doing about, Christina Friedland sent the thing for transport, but there's jobs and innovation that should be in there too for the aluminum and the steel. Where's her letter to David Eby?
Well, she keeps talking about it, saying we're going to do everything we can. We're going to act very quickly. She's been saying that now for since she was given the job, I would say.
Well,
so
they do have.
She's talking about it.
What time is it right now in Ottawa? What is it, like 12:30?
It's 1:25.
1:25. So they're almost on vacay here, right?
Yeah, I think she'll probably already be at the door.
You think? I think maybe Justin Trudeau is like got the spot warmed up for them there on the Caribbean there. Got the place all set up.
Well, they're certainly not going to be. They're not going to be in Tofino, are they? Because all the sob stories coming out of Tofino. Apparently, it's just impossible to go there as a tourist these days. Although then again, Justin Trudeau will probably know someone, won't he? That's got a $50 million oceanside pad or something.
I'm still waiting for the appointment of Justin Trudeau as the climate ambassador to the world from Canada to wag his finger at the other nations, and then his first visit will be to the White House to admonish Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'm sure Donald Trump will allow him in the building.
Anyway, That's our show for this week. If you like the show, we'd like you to share it and with people, get it out there, because Bill C-18 continues to cripple us. They've taken away our audience of over 200,000, and they continue to hobble and cripple us while they support selectively media that is obviously compromised. So help us, help you. How's that? Help us, help you.
Sounds like a deal. And also, you know, that's kind of the reason we're on YouTube as well, isn't it? It's important to remember, because the government, basically, like the federal government, basically legislated in such a, you know, ham-fisted fashion that they've basically directed us into this avenue rather than what we would otherwise be doing, which is good old-fashioned news.
Good old-fashioned news, and we hope you enjoy the show. We're back next week. We'll be here at Monday at 9 a.m. Every day at 9 a.m. we're here, and it's usually it's over an hour. Well, we try to shoot for an hour, but it's usually like 90 minutes, I think, right? Because we get into a good chinwag, and they give us so much material. That's one thing, you know, with the Liberals winning. I mean, they've given us so much material. It's just a treasure trove. You know, like the CNN was lucky to get Donald Trump back because that's all they get to do is Trump, and we're, I guess, lucky enough to get the Liberals so they can just continue to feed us information. But they're going on holidays. What are they going to be doing for those holidays? When are they due back?
Maybe they'll be there with them.
It's a 3-month holiday, isn't it? Like they're gone for 3 months. And
I think, till mid-September. That's when they're back.
Yeah, and then we'll see if they can jam through Bill C-5 today. And, you know, you didn't get your $850. You can, you know, look forward to, you know, like a couple of, enough for, what is it, Tim Hortons or something like that?
A few cans of tuna, they were saying, yeah.
Or cans of tuna, yeah, so yeah, there you go. So enjoy. And again, we thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.